Good morning. Welcome to Sarah's Kitchen. We are starting our challah bake. So before we start, I want to go through the ingredients, and then I want to go through the tools, and then we're going to talk about the spiritual implications of challah and all the fun reasons why we make challah every Friday. Firstly, I want to welcome you to my kitchen. With the whole coronavirus thing going around, I woke up this morning and I decided that every day I'm going to find at least 10 silver linings. That's my new word. You know, the flatten the curve and the coronavirus, those are all new words in our dictionary. My new word is silver lining. All day, every day, I'm going to find my silver linings, because if we're here and we're home and the whole world is having the coronavirus, obviously there's a reason. And so we're going to find those reasons, and we're going to find everything positive within this very scary time. And by the way, the kids will love it too. They'll help you find silver linings. So we're going to start with silver linings. Number one silver lining today is that I'm inviting you into my kitchen to make challah. I usually make a big Sarah's Kitchen challah once a month, the first Friday of the month, but I'm doing it today. Silver lining. We get to do an extra challah bake. And who knows, maybe we'll do it next week too, right before Pesach, one last hurrah of challah. Okay, let's go through the ingredients and we'll go from there. I just want to make sure everyone has what they need. Number one, flour. Better for bread flour is the best idea, but if you don't have better for bread, use any flour you have in the house. Okay. Number two, salt. So I usually put my salt in a mason jar, but this is the best salt to use. If you don't have the salt, that's okay. It's hard to get products right now, but God willing, this will be over soon. Go get Diamond kosher salt. It's the best kosher salt. Morton kosher salt, by the way, is much saltier. So if you're using Morton, half the amount. And we'll talk about the amounts in a second. Yeast. Yeast is what helps the challah, the dough grow. Rapid. A lot of people texted me and asked me what kind of yeast. Always rapid, because that just allows the yeast to work quicker. Okay, sugar. Granulated sugar. Here, I have that. I don't use a lot of sugar in my house. A lot of you know that I try to stay away from sugar. I'll use agave or honey instead. But for challah, we're going pure and real, and we're doing sugar. Okay, oil. I like the sunflower oil. It has a kosher symbol. I get it at Trader Joe's. I noticed there wasn't a lot left when I was there, but I had, thank God, from the last challah bake. Anyway, I like this because it doesn't have a lot of flavor. And so you kind of want an oil that gives it fat and yumminess, but you don't want a strong oil flavor. Okay, so I pre-measured everything. I wrote the ingredients. I sent everyone a link for the ingredients, but let's just go through it so that you can measure as I talk about the tools. 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. Kosher salt is what gives the challah lots of flavor. Yeast. 2 tablespoons of yeast, 3/4 of a cup sugar, 1/2 cup of oil, 2 eggs, 2 cups of water, and the water that I like to use is kind of lukewarm. So let's just get it lukewarm. That will help. The yeast rise. Okay. Okay. Now let's go to the tools. Silver bowl, or any bowl you have in the house. Measuring cups. Okay, so there's 2 types of measuring cups, and anyone who's done Sarah's Kitchen with me knows that liquid, dry, never the two shall mix. So this way, if you put dry here, you know, it's not going to stick to the sides. But if you put liquid first, it will. So this is always my liquid, and this is always my dry. By the way, they say that it's more accurate when you do dry in this as opposed to this. But we tried it, and it's about the same. But this way, it keeps things neat and organized. Okay, wooden spoon or any spatula. I would recommend something that's one piece so that it doesn't split apart. It's hard when you're doing the dough. There's a lot of muscle you need to use, so it's better to have one. Your brush, which we're going to use soon. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can use a fork. a measuring spoon. I really like this one because it's a 2 tablespoons. It's so easy. I get distracted while I'm cooking, but if I know I need 2 tablespoons and I just stick it in, I've got it. Okay, I think we have everything. Oh, toppings. Okay, so here's some ideas. First of all, if you have spray, I might not have written it in my link, but if you have spray, use that. This is great when you're kneading the challah dough. It's a little sticky. You actually want your dough to be a little sticky. If you use spray, then the spray will keep the dough from sticking too much on your hands. So that's a little trick we've learned. You spray your hands as you're kneading the dough. We'll get to that. Okay? Trader Joe's everything but the bagel. Heaven. Just delicious. Sesame seeds for those who don't like the everything but the bagel. Chocolate chips. By the way, this is an amazing company. It's my friend. Anyway, just wanted to give her a shout out. Hi, Connie. Okay, 2 more tools. A cooling rack. If you don't have one, no problem. I'll show you what to do when we get to that part. And challah trays with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, use the said spray. And one more thing that's really a good idea. If you have, if not, no big deal, but this was just a little addition. Cornmeal. Cornmeal, if you put it on the bottom of the bread, it gives the bottom of the bread a really crunchy, crusty taste, and it prevents it from going soggy. I don't like soggy challah dough, so there's a challah bread, so the crust, I want it to be dry and crunchy, and that really helps. Okay, let's start. My bowl. What I love about this recipe, by the way, is that it's one bowl. I don't need a lot of tools, as you see. All right, let's start. Grab your flour. We're going to shift things around. Grab your flour. You know what I thought of? A really good idea. Chaya, do you want to make a loaf of challah from the dough that's ready so that it can be ready and we can show everyone how to use it? Okay. All right. Ready? Here's my dry ingredients. By the way, oh, this is really cool. Oh, I'll tell you when we're waiting for the yeast to rise. Okay. Cup. Don't worry about measuring accurately. It's not like baking a cake. When you're baking a cake, you really want to make sure that the flour is leveled. Use your finger or use a knife. But with challah, you have a little bit of leeway. Plus, I'm going to add a little bit less dough, a little less flour, because once you add the flour, you can't take it out, but you can always add. So whenever you make challah and it gives you a certain amount of cups, use a little less. Okay, ready? 2 cups, 3 cups, 4 cups, 5, 6. I know I said you should have 7 cups of flour because you should always have extra flour on hand. 6 is probably not going to be enough, but we're going to add more as it goes because I just want to make sure that I don't add too much flour. And by the way, your kitchen temperature, the temperature of your hands, all of this affects the challah and how heavy the challah will be. So you never know, that's why I start off with less and then we'll add more. Okay, my kids are going to make a little one batch. They're going to use some of my dough. Guys, don't use all of it so I can show everyone what the dough looks like. Okay, this is a joint effort. We're all together in this. Okay, here is my flour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a well. So what I'm creating is a bowl within a bowl. So if you see here, see how I made a, don't worry about if it's not perfect, because the idea is we want to just kind of, again, that's what I love about bread and challah. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be perfect for you and perfect for your family, by the way. And today's day and age, it's the new perfect, right? So silver linings, that's what we're about. Okay, 2 cups of water. And you just pour it into the middle. And by the way, a great way to check the water is put it, you can actually do it this way. You can test it like a baby's bottle, and if it's room temperature or a little above, you've got it right. If it's too hot, then it's not okay. Here's some flour. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna start creating the challah. Okay, my yeast, 2 tablespoons of yeast. I'm putting it inside, directly inside. I'm keeping it all in the center. I'm not touching the flour that's around. Next, my sugar. Okay, so I'm gonna take about 2/3 of the sugar and put it in. Eyeball it. Again, no measurements. It's okay already. It's pre-measured, so you just kind of eyeball it. So yeah, that looks about right. Okay. So this is about 1/3. We're going to put it on the side and use it soon. What you can do is, and give it space. So I'm just going to gently mix it just a little bit, kind of to break up the yeast a little, and then I'm going to back away. And what we're waiting for is to see bubbles. We want to see that the yeast is live. So I love this challah recipe. The only downside of the challah recipe is that if I take the yeast and I use it, and I see that it's not live, it doesn't start bubbling. Sometimes yeast is past its prime. And so if it is, then if you put it with the sugar and you put it in and it doesn't poof, don't make the bread. Stop and start again. So usually you do the yeast separately, so it's not a big deal. So you just throw out the little bit of yeast and the water. But here you would also have to throw out the flour because the whole thing has to be restarted. That's the only negativity. But the positive is, the silver lining, that I've never had to do that before. So thank God, my yeast is live, and I put it in with the sugar. So we are waiting now for it to turn bubbly. As soon as you start seeing bubbles, you can breathe a sigh of relief. It's live. And we're gonna let it sit, and we're gonna back away. I always say that making challah is so similar to raising kids. You need the right ingredients, right? You need a positive host. You need a positive environment. And also lots of positivity. So if you think about it, so the yeast is the child, right? And how do we start raising children? With a lot of positivity. Lots of sugar, lots of, not real sugar. Lots of positivity and love and warmth. And then and you back away. Let them thrive. Let them have space. This is one of my weaknesses where I don't give my kids a lot of space. But really the best is to kind of watch and observe and be there to facilitate and love them. But then at a certain point, back away and let them grow. Give them lots of positivity. At a certain point, we're going to add the salt. And the salt is great because it creates boundaries. As soon as you add the salt to the yeast stops growing uncontrollably. And that's what you want. You don't want the yeast to grow without boundaries. You want boundaries. You want certain parameters, and that's what the salt does. But you want to know the cool thing? As soon as we add the salt, we're going to add the sugar too, because when you add discipline, it always should be with sweetness and with love. So these are going to be our next step, but we're not doing that yet because we want...
Explain quickly from the yeast. Someone got logged off.
What'd you say?
Just explain quickly about the yeast.
Okay, somebody asked me to explain quickly about these. This is all new to me. I've never done this before, so thank you for bearing with me. So the yeast, we're waiting for the yeast to become alive. You'll see the little bubbles. Don't touch, back away. It's so hard for me because I want to kitzel a little, but I'm not. I'm just allowing it to do its thing. So
say what to do with the yeast.
Say what to do with the yeast?
Yeah.
Pour it in. So we poured yeast in and 2/3 of the 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So I pre-measured, but if you didn't pre-measure, just do a 1/2 cup of sugar. And then 1/4 of a cup of sugar we'll use soon. A good idea, and then just let it sit with the water. 2 cups of water. You can break it up. You can break it up a little with the bottom of the spoon. But other than that, leave it. Back away. Kind of be there as the adult eyes to make sure that everything is doing what it needs to do. Okay. So another cool thing about making challah, which I really love, is that we use 7 ingredients. So let's go through it. Flour, sugar, salt, oil, eggs, yeast, and water. 7 ingredients. And we put all the ingredients together to create challah. When do we eat the challah? On Shabbos. What is Shabbos? Shabbos is the culmination of all the days of the week. We toiled on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday. We worked. And on Shabbos, we take all of that energy that we used on all those 6 days and we combine it together to create challah for Shabbos. We create an energy for Shabbos to rest and bring godliness into every day of the week. So all of a sudden, Sunday has meaning, and Monday has meaning, and Tuesday has meaning. As soon as you keep Shabbos, as soon as you bring Shabbos into your home, as soon as you make challah, as soon as you light Shabbat candles, what you're doing is you're taking the 6 days that we just finished, and we're making them holy. We're making them valuable, because everything we did for Shabbos. And you know what? What's so cool is that it even affects the next week. So by us doing this now, our Sunday, our Monday, our Tuesday, our Wednesday, our Thursday, and our Friday are all holy. They all have so much energy. So these 7 ingredients together are creating something holy. And I'm going to tell you, as soon as we get to the dough part, how you take dough and make it challah. Because right now, it's just dough. Well, it's just flour and yeast. But at a certain point, it's going to turn into dough. How do we make it challah? What transforms dough into challah? And we're going to get to that as soon as we start with the rest of the ingredients. Guess what? You know what? I'm not going to even cover this because we're definitely going to need more flour. Okay. Take a look at my yeast. Look how beautiful it is. It's all bubbly. You know, there's a few spots that aren't absorbed yet, and that's okay. Let's get to the next stuff. Okay, everybody ready? The next thing we need is salt. Because now we're putting in the boundaries, so we don't want it to grow out of control. So it's 2 tablespoons of salt. Again, if you have a 2 tablespoon, all you do is scoop 1 scoop, so you don't have to count. Okay, next, the 1/4 of a cup of sugar. Okay, so we did the positive, the love. As we're doing the discipline, I'm going to move these away. Get it in there. I'm just going to make sure my kids put the challah. Guys, we want to put the challah in the oven so that it's ready by the time we're finished. And leave some dough so I can show everyone what the dough looks like. Okay, thank you. All right, next. So now you're going to notice that, okay, thank you, Chaya. Now you're going to notice that it got a little white. And what it's telling you is that it's setting parameters. It's not shocked. It's not upset that I said no. But what it is doing is it's saying, okay, let's make a different choice. We're not going to grow out of control. What we're going to do is grow and thrive, but within parameters and borders and boundaries. Okay, so that's what we have here. It looks great. Okay, the next thing we're going to add is some umami or
just
some flavor.
add the rest of the sugar? You just added it?
Add the rest of the sugar, yes. Keep the questions coming. My son Mendel is my videographer, and he will let me know when you have questions. We're all one community, we're one family, we're doing this together. A lot of things we're doing are new and for the first time, and that's great. Another silver lining. I have the opportunity to go with above and beyond my comfort level, and that's great. Okay, so now eggs, 2 eggs. What I find is that in the future, when you make this again, is that I leave my eggs out because I like that they are room temperature. By the way, eggs do not have to be in the fridge. I wouldn't keep it in a very warm place, but mostly in the evening my kitchen is cool. And so I take my eggs out the night before, and I really like them room temperature. I feel like they just absorb into the dough better. Just a side note that I've noticed. But no panic, there are plenty of times where I use cold eggs and it's great. Okay, so here's another way that I'm making this opportunity holy. It just needs eggs. You need a taste, sorry, let me just explain, you need a brushed egg on it. So here's a brushed egg, and okay. So I'm taking eggs and I'm cracking them. And I'm gonna show you what I do. I take a glass bowl and, oh, all of a sudden this isn't working, that's great. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check the egg to make sure there is no blood spot. Because as Jews, we don't eat blood, it's not kosher. What does it mean to eat blood? It means to absorb someone else's life force. Everybody and everything is created for a specific reason. And so we don't wanna eat or drink the blood of somebody else or something else. And so what we're doing now is just checking to make sure there's no blood. By the way, brown eggs have a lot more blood spots or brown spots that make me nervous, so I do not use brown. I never, even though they're organic and I try to only incorporate organic into my house, I don't buy brown eggs because of the blood spots. If it has a blood spot, then I throw it out. I don't absorb it into my challah. So here's an opportunity to bring holiness into cracking eggs. You know, in the morning when I make eggs, I'm like barely up. I grab my coffee. I'm making myself an omelet. You know what I'm doing? I'm saying, God, I didn't forget about you. In the morning, I'm cracking eggs. I already have you in mind. I'm already checking to make sure there's no blood. So I've just made my omelet holy here. So I love this. I love that God gives us so many opportunities to connect to him and to think about him. It's such a great opportunity to have a strong relationship just by thinking about God and by reaching out and by finding ways to connect. Okay, you should have a fork. I didn't put a fork out here, but no problem. You just let it break up the yolk. It just, this way you won't have like globs of yolk in one part. Mendel, I would add some honey to that too. And then brush it on and stick it in. And then I'll show you what challah looks like. Okay, so now I have my broken up yolk. If you look at, Mendel, can they see? If you look at the inside, you'll see that it's all white and it looks good and it's ready for the next ingredients. Okay, follow along. The 2 eggs, my 2 holy eggs. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my oil. Again, it's a flavorless oil. I really love the sunflower. You could use grapeseed, you can use any of that. Okay, so I'm pouring it in. Okay, and we'll focus on it. Okay, now you can take your spoon, and what I'm going to start doing is I am going to start mixing it slowly, just inside, and at a certain point, I'm going to slowly absorb the flour. Okay, do it slowly, because you want to kind of incorporate the wet ingredients, and then slowly combine dry ingredients. Okay, here's the thing. You're gonna mix and you're gonna mix and you're gonna mix, and then at a certain point, it's just gonna be very difficult to mix it with a spoon or a spatula. Here's it. When you're mixing, you're gonna see
how much oil.
How much oil? A half a cup. Half a cup of oil. Half a cup of oil. Guys, you should get the challah into the oven because it takes at least 25 minutes. So let's stick it in. Okay, at a certain point, it's going to be difficult. This is why I say to have a spoon that's just made out of one piece, because sometimes it splits when you're trying to do this. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? If you give me a second, I'm going to stick this in the oven. Put on the timer. Okay. Okay. Now, see how it's kind of all absorbed? But it needs a little bit of love, so that's what we're gonna do. Let me show you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take my hand and I'm gonna spray the oil around it. And this way, it's gonna prevent a lot of the stickiness. I'm still gonna get some.
A half a cup of oil?
A half a cup of oil and 2 eggs. Okay, so I already see that I need a little bit, thank you, Kaya. I need a little bit more flour. No big deal, I have my flour here, and I have my dry ingredient. What I would recommend is just adding a little bit of flour at a time. Remember what I talked about in the beginning, how if you add too much flour, you can take it out, but you can always add. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep going. Okay, here's how you knead. Your fingers are the scoopers, and your palm pushes it down. So scoop and push, scoop and push. You want, this is kind of like the gatherers. So silver lining, God created wonderful fingers so you can make challah, right? We're just gonna find every silver lining all day, every day, and by the end of the day, we're gonna have so many silver linings. Okay, scoop. So I already see it should not be this sticky. So I'm gonna add a little bit more flour. You want a little bit of stickiness, but not so much that it comes onto your hand. Okay, What I'm finding now is that I'm going to transfer it onto my counter so that I'll have more control over my bowl. Okay, so I emptied my bowl as much as I could. Okay, ready? I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my hands, and we're going to go. Scoop and push, scoop and press, scoop and just keep gathering it. The idea is you want one really nice cohesive dough. And remember, as you're kneading, you are baking bread, you are baking challah for your family. It's such a visceral action, and it's such a beautiful thing to do, and I can't wait for my house to smell like challah. Another silver lining. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I can't wait for my house to smell like challah. It just smells like love and warmth and Shabbos. Okay. So I'm already liking how this dough is coming out. What I would say, yeah, I think it's really good. And see how much less, let me tell you, if you do it without the spray, you have globs on your hands. But if you use your spray, then you just have just a little bit, which is okay. And you just kind of try to pick as much as you can. Okay, so look how beautiful this dough is. Please let me know if you have any questions, if you've gotten to this point, and we are going to go to the next step of creating challah out of dough. Okay, so actually what I love about this dough also is generally you need to let it rise for about an hour, but this dough actually is very resilient and it kind of rises very quickly. So we're not even going to wait the hour. We're going to form it and we'll stick it in the oven and it will expand in the oven. If you have more time, you can make it and then let it sit for an hour, but it's not necessary, and I found that I've done it both ways and it comes out great. What I'm going to do is, while I talk, I'm going to just put a little bit of flour so that it doesn't stick. If you stop at this point, let me show you what you do. You take your flour, you take your bowl, and you add a little bit of oil to the bottom, and you kind of swish it around, and then you add your dough to the center, and kind of move the dough around without breaking the dough up. And then this way you have oil around the entire dough so that as it rises, it doesn't stick to the bowl and it's easier to take it out. Okay, so this is the dough, sans some of the dough that my kids use to make a challah, so I can show you. See how it comes out easily? So it actually did double in size. It's hard to see that, but trust me, it did. And you see how easily it came out? Because I oiled the sides.
Maybe preheating the oven?
Yes, please reheat the oven to 350. Which you can do right now because we have some time. It takes about, 10 minutes to preheat it. We have some time because we're going to form the challah. But let's talk about how to make this into challah. Okay. And this correlates to life in general. How to take anything physical in this world and make it holy. You know how? By bringing God into it. Everything you do, there's an opportunity to connect with God. That's why there are so many mitzvot. So many mitzvahs actually a connection. That's why there's so many connections in the Torah. There's 613. God is saying, you know that every mitzvah is a love letter. Every mitzvah is an opportunity to connect with me. In a relationship, it's the small things that make a big difference. The big anniversary, the big vacations, that's great, but really that's not what keeps a relationship thriving. What keeps a relationship thriving is the little notes, the little remembering, oh, my husband likes this kind of juice, or this kind of food, or my wife likes to be able to have an hour to read, or I'm going to give her that space, or anything that, any little thing, being kind to one another, with our spouses, with our significant others, with our children, the little connections, the little kindnesses, the little remembering is really what thrives a relationship. Anytime my husband goes to LA to pick up food, he'll go out to eat, he'll always call me and say, Sarla, is there anything I could pick up for you? I went out to eat. I have a meeting in LA at a kosher restaurant. What can I get for you? Always, without fail. You know what it means? It means that even when he was meeting with someone else, I'm on his mind as well. So, and that's what God wants. God says, I want to be on your mind. Think about me. Always, in every opportunity. Just a little bit, save a little space in my brain for me. In your brain for me. So I always have a little God space in my brain. It's always like, hi God, just connecting. I'm not forgetting about you. So when I make my omelet, I'm thinking about Hashem, God. When I'm making dough, I'm thinking about Hashem. Before I eat kosher food, thinking about Hashem. Saying a blessing before I eat, waking up in the morning and saying thank you, Modani, thinking about Hashem. I mean, there's so many ways, and you know what? Be creative. Think of all different ways that you can think of Hashem. Okay, so let me just tell you what we're doing now. In the Torah, there's actually a commandment to take challah. What does that mean? Challah is literally what we're about to do now. Right now, this is just dough.
What should they do? What should they do? A trick? What's the trick if they don't have a metal rack or parchment paper?
Just as soon as you take the challah out, turn it upside down and put it on the corner of the rack to allow it to cool.
They don't have a rack or parchment paper.
I'm sorry. You don't need. Okay. You don't need If somebody wanted to know, what do you do if you don't have parchment paper or a cooling rack? No big deal. Use spray or a little bit of oil to the bottom. And if you have cornstarch, cornmeal, use a little bit of the cornmeal. If you don't, no big deal. You just don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pan. And I will show you how, but until then I'll just tell you, take your challah once it's ready and it's all crispy and golden. And as soon as you take it out of the oven, let it cool for maybe 2 minutes so that you just can handle it. And then you turn it upside down and you turn it on the corner of your baking sheet. So here's my baking sheet. And I would take my challah and I would turn it upside down and leave it a little bit on the corner, on the edge.
Have parchment paper.
You don't need parchment paper. Just use spray. If you don't have parchment paper, a lot of people don't have parchment paper. That's okay. I mean, sometimes I run out of parchment paper.
Questions this time.
Yeah, if you have any questions, my son is manning the questions, and we will try to answer them as we go along. We're doing this together. I love this. This morning my kids woke up and said, "Oh, goody, is everyone coming for challah baking?" And I said, they are, but in a different way, in a new normal. And so I welcome you all, and I'm so excited that you're here with me. Okay, so now I have the challah. So generally, here's another way to connect. By making challah and reminding ourselves that everything we have in our life is because of God's blessings. So we're going to make the challah, but there's a mitzvah, there's a commandment, a connection that when you make the challah, it should have at least 15 cups of flour in order to do the next step that we're about to do. So we didn't make 15. Everyone used about 6 or 7 cups. So what I love about this is that all of us together are virtually going to connect our dough together, so we'll be able to do this. Because all our doughs together is way more than 15 cups of flour. And so this way we're going to be able to say the blessing and turn this dough into challah by working together and by connecting together, even virtually. That's our new reality, and that's okay, temporarily. Okay, so now I have my dough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off a piece, and I ask everybody to please take off a piece. And what we're doing is we're going to now change the dough into challah. In the time of the temple, the priests, the Kohanim, and the Levites, they didn't get a salary, right? Maybe the Levites got a salary, but the Kohanim, the priests, did not get a salary. You know what they got? You know what the priests were the rabbis of that time. You know what they got? They got bikur, that when people made challah. These were all the things that were contributed to the temple. So in today's day and age, we don't have a temple in Jerusalem. Well, we have lots of shuls, but we don't have the temple on the Temple Mount. But what we have is the ability to create a temple in our home. So we're creating holiness in our home. We're saying, God, you know what? I know we missed the temple in Jerusalem. I know we're going to have it back very soon, but until then, we have it in our home. We're going to create a miniature temple in our home. And by pulling challah and by doing this following step, we are now creating a temple. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take off a piece, we're going to say a blessing, then we're going to wrap it in aluminum foil, and we're literally going to give it up as a sacrifice. We're going to put it in the oven and allow it to burn, and then we're going to not use it. We're going to throw it out because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the priests. Okay, so we're taking off a piece, and we're saying, Zos challah. This is challah, because literally in the Torah it says, take off a piece of dough and call it challah. So this is challah. Now please join me together in doing this. Take off a piece. Let's join together virtually as if we have one large piece that we are giving to God, to his people, his priests, who do the service in God. Okay. Now we're going to say the blessing together. After we say the blessing, here's such an amazing thing. Speak louder. Okay, here's an amazing thing. We now have the opportunity to ask God for anything. By the way, ask God for anything. But when you make challah, by the way, especially women when they make challah, this is a mitzvah that's specifically for women, but men can join too. When you say the blessing, after you finish, we're going to stop and we're going to close our eyes and we're going to ask God for anything. I always imagine a big ear on top of my kitchen, God's ear. And God always listens, but when you make challah, the ear gets lower. God wants to listen even more. And he stops everything. He's running the whole world, and especially now with coronavirus, lots more on his plate. But you know what? He stops and he says, I want to hear what you're saying. You're making challah. I love when you make challah and you bring me into your dough. So please tell me, what is it that you want? And we're going to close our eyes and we're going to pray. And we have a lot to pray about. Let me just tell you one thing quickly, that when you pray, in general, when you ask God for anything, the first thing you do is thank God for everything we have. There's so much to be thankful. So before we start asking, first we thank you, God, and then we think about all the things we're thankful for. Number two, the second things we do is we ask for others. We really we think about who needs the blessings, and then we ask for them. And then, after we thanked and after we ask for other people, then we ask for ourselves and our family. And by the way, asking for other people is Israel too. Please, please ask that God always protect Israel. Okay, so here, ready everybody? Together, pretend usually when we do the challah together, we all hold hands. You're not here to physically hold my hand, but I'm going to pretend that you're holding my hand virtually. Are we ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahafrish challah. Thank you, God, for giving us this opportunity to connect, a mitzvah to connect, by separating the dough and making challah. Okay? Ready. So now I'm going to close my eyes. Please take 1 minute, 2 minutes, and just pray. Close your eyes and just ask for anything. Okay, may God really hear what we have to say, and when we see responses right away and positive responses. God always answers, but sometimes he says no. Today we're asking that God says yes. Okay. Yossi, you want to wrap this in aluminum foil, and I'll show everyone what to do? Okay, let's make challah. Woo! Now this is challah. Now this is holy. This isn't just dough. It's actually challah dough. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so look how beautiful and pliable this dough is. I'm going to clear my space a little. Have your flour available. You should have a little bit more flour left because we said 7 cups. Okay, so I'm just going to, it doesn't even need that much. And we are going to take pieces. I recommend, by the way, that don't make the challahs too big because it takes a really long time to bake if it's too big. So the smaller the challahs, I really like crispy, so the smaller the challahs, the crispier, and the better it will be, because sometimes the outside gets ready and the inside is still raw. If you like that, by all means do that, but I like my challah to be ready inside and out. Okay, so what I did is I took off a piece, and this, by the way, makes nice amounts of challah, so you can freeze some. Some people might ask me what to do if you have extra dough that you don't want to use. Just put it in a Ziploc. Make sure all the air is out. Write the date on it, on the outside of the Ziploc bag. Write what it is, because sometimes I stick things in the freezer and I have no idea what they are. Stick them in the freezer and and take it out, bring it to room temperature. Oh, I forgot. What we found by challah baking, what we found that works is first form it into challah, into a braid, then put it in a Ziploc bag, then stick it in the freezer. Okay, so we made 3 equal balls, and now what we're going to do is make the strands to create the challah. So you can do it this way, or you can do it this way. You can get creative and do it this way, any way you want.
They cannot go on.
You want to make them as even as possible. Don't worry if they're not perfect. I actually like the look of a rustic challah, so don't worry about how the visual. Actually, people tend to buy more rustic looking bread than the perfect bakery bread. So that always reassures me. Okay, so these are kind of equal.
Is this the challah?
Yeah, check if it's on.
It doesn't look like challah.
Well, the kids made it. Okay. So now we have 3 equal parts, 3 equal strands for our braid. Everyone ready? We're all, okay, let me move this away so we can see more clearly. By the way, if you want to look over here, I took, just as a side note, I took the dough and I just wrapped it in a little piece of aluminum foil. And this is my sacrifice. I'm giving this to the priest. I'm just turning on. You can stick it in the oven or you can stick it on top here. It really depends on what you want to do. Just give it a little bit of time. Once you smell the smokiness, you're like, oh, it's ready. I have just made my home into a temple. Okay, ready? Now, don't, okay, make this, kind of make an end. I should do it the other way, but I don't know how to do that, so we're going to do it this way. Let me tell you that when you combine it together, don't do it too tight, because sometimes I find that I want to fix it and I want to be able to pull it together, pull it apart. Okay, so make a Hebrew letter shin, or I'm not sure what that is, a W. Okay, you ready? And then just braid. Do it as tight as possible. This and 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 this, and then join together. So see here, I'm noticing that this doesn't look as nice as this. I know I said it's great to be rustic, but I'm gonna just fix it a little. So what I did is here, let me show you what I just did. I just turned it over, and then I'm just gonna finish this. We're gonna do another one so that everyone can see. Isn't this cute? A little challah. So I told you already that, right? I like smaller challahs because they cook more, they bake more evenly. Okay, so let me show you, I have my tray. We're gonna make more, but I wanna just show you where to put it. Okay, just put it down. Make sure there's a lot of space so that, because we need to allow the challah to rise and give it space. And it's gonna rise now, and it's also gonna rise in the oven. And so I kind of want to give everybody space, every piece of challah space. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, equal parts.
So we should put this in the oven.
Okay, is it almost ready?
No, let me take this, put this in.
Okay, so let me show you what to do. Anybody who, let me.
Need the egg, you need the egg.
Oh,
Need the egg.
yeah, we have to egg it. Okay, so can you pass me the honey?
There's honey in there, there's honey.
Let me show everyone. Okay, so here's what I do for the toppings. We're gonna top this one so I can stick it in the oven. I want it to be super organized and have the challah in the oven already. But, you know, we do as best as we can, right? Okay, so I took egg, and I'm gonna add a little bit of honey, and I'm gonna kind of mix it. By the way, you can get these at the Dollar Tree. Yeah, and they're excellent. Usually I have my kids help me do it. Okay. Now I'm gonna mix this in.
Give me the tray.
You know what? Bring me another tray that's over there. Give me a second, because I'm gonna use a smaller tray. Let me show you what I do. Okay. I have parchment paper. The tray is in this, no, right here where we keep the flavored stuff. Okay. I'm just sort of gonna, I usually cut it to size. That's not what I meant. On the top shelf, all the way in the back, there's a tray. All the way in the back. Okay. Okay, here's my mini tray. Ready? I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna show you what to do. So this way, you can start putting the challah together.
So to put honey in there.
So the honey and the egg are together. Just eyeball the honey, just like a glop of honey. There's no exact measurements. And this is what gives the challah the shine, or the sheen. And also, this is what helps the toppings adhere to the challah. So you can really choose anything you want. You can do chocolate chips that I can, chocolate chips. You can do sesame seeds. You can do everything but the bagel. We're gonna go with plain sesame seeds. Actually, smells yum. These are a little bit roasted. When you roast sesame seeds or any nuts, it just gives it a lot more flavor. So even though it's gonna be roasted in the oven, I like them pre-roasted because it just adds a little bit of flavor. Okay. You know what else you can add? You can add, give me a second and I'll show you. I have something called Maldon salt, which is so delicious and it has a flaky flavor.
Say what it is again?
They're called Maldon salt and the granules are a little bit bigger than the regular kosher salt. So I'm just gonna, just a little bit, just add so that when you take a bite of the challah, you get a little surprise saltiness. It's a delicious flavor. See, it's like flakier. Okay, now I'm sticking it in the oven, 350, preheated. And, so the challah that my kids made is almost ready and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, let's make a few more together. And my alarm went off. I love this, silver lining. My house is alive. Woo! Okay.
Open the door, open the door, open the door.
My house wants me to remember that my house is a gift and it houses our family and it protects us and it creates a roof over our head. So thank you, house, for everything that you provide for us. Okay, pretty much equal. Let's start again. Now we should be professionals at this.
How
Don't keep it too tight.
How long do you leave it in the oven for?
How long? Okay, so about, depending on the size of your challah, about 25 minutes. Sometimes a little longer. What I say is that, let's say start with 25 minutes and be around. Basically, when you make challah, when it's in the oven, kind of be around. Don't disappear for long periods of time. Be around your oven. Always put on your timer. If you put on your timer, it will remind you. Every time I don't put on my timer because I say, I'll remember, I forget. So this way, here's a silver lining. God created timers, or gave the ability for people to think of timers, so that this way, when we put anything in the oven, turn the timer on. So let's make sure the timer is on. I'm going to turn the timer on. I'm going to do it 30 minutes, but maybe I should do it 25. Let me edit it. 20. I'm going to start with 20 minutes because it's a smaller challah. I'm doing 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, I'm going to check the challah. If it looks ready, like the color is a nice dark color, then I'll take it out and either I'll put it on my cooling rack or I'll turn it upside down at the edge of my baking sheet. If it's, even if it's a little bit under, here's what I recommend. Taking it out when it looks good, right? Taking it out and then right before Shabbat, sticking it back in the oven. My husband does this every single time with bakery challah, with homemade challah. Takes it out, puts it back in the oven on 350 for 5 to 7 minutes. Maybe that's too long, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Again, everyone's oven is different and the temperature is different. But so that your house, again, smells of challah and also it gives that extra crunchy crispiness. Okay, ready? Let's do this one. Let's do it as tight as you can. Tight as you can. Okay, well, that's an interesting looking one. Turn it upside down again. Let's split this and let's kind of braid it again. And here's an adorable challah. Here, let's do one more. By now, I think my counter could use a drop more. Please just use very scant, not a lot of flour, just so that it doesn't stick, okay? 3 equal parts. Just kind of give it a little bit of flour so it's not sticky. You can even put the step flour
Is
on
it
your hand.
recorded? It stays up there? Does it stay recorded up there on Facebook?
After a cheer.
Okay. Let's do this. And then we're gonna create the braid. And then I'm gonna brush the challah with the egg and I'm gonna stick it in the oven. The great thing about making challah is that I'm not in a rush to braid everything right this second. I'm allowing it to have some space, right? Raising children, giving the dough space to just hang out. It actually tastes better when you kind of just let it sit. After you braid it, sometimes if I have time, I'll let it sit for like a half hour. I'll cover it with a towel and I'll just let it sit.
Here's an amazing thing.
Okay, ready? Okay. Oh, this one's adorable. Okay. I flipped it up, over, okay. This one's really nice. Okay, so you see how I'm giving it space? I could actually fit one more in, but let's get these in the oven. Here, like this. Okay, this way there's room for both of them to grow as they're hanging out in the oven. Okay, I'm brushing.
Say there's honey in there.
Remember that there's honey in here. If you don't like honey, don't add it, but you can add a little
It's
sugar.
Egg, it's egg and honey.
But
Say that
it's egg and honey, for anyone who's asking.
How long do you bake it for?
You bake it for about 25 minutes. Again, everybody's oven temperature is different. And everybody also likes their challah differently. When we do the challah baking, some people ask me to take it out earlier. Some people ask me to leave it in longer. They like it super crispy. And like I mentioned before, that you can take it out and then right before Shabbos, you'll put it back in and get that crispy, delicious smelling flavor. Okay, so now I'm gonna use some of this. Everything, by the way, it has an OU, it's kosher. So here's another thing. I go to Trader Joe's or any market and I look for kosher symbols. So you know what just happened? Number one, I created a temple in Trader Joe's. I made it holy. Number two, my whole shopping experience is holy. So, I mean, like I said, I'm taking God with me as I'm going shopping. So shopping becomes holy and valuable and important. Oh, wow, look at that challah. Okay, we're gonna look at that in a second. Here is, look how beautiful this is. See, thank you Trader Joe's for giving me the opportunity. Let's add chocolate chips to this one.
So you want to show the next one?
Okay. And when you do the chocolate chips, sort of like press them in a little. Oh, chocolate chips and salt. Add a little bit of Maldon salt. Oh,
Explain
wow.
what the salt is. Call it in.
It's called Maldon salt. I get it on, you know, it's harder and harder to find. Sur La Table sells it. Sometimes Whole Foods sells it. I usually get it on Amazon. I don't know if it's an essential ingredient right now. I don't know if it's like just as important as medical supplies. It might be, depending on how much you love salt, but you can try to order it. Okay, we're sticking it in the oven.
Hold on, let me take the other one. So you can show them this.
Oh, that one's not ready. It's okay. Okay, so now let's take a look at the challah my children made. Look how beautiful. And they actually did not use parchment paper. Or they did use parchment paper, but the parchment paper disappeared. Good. Look how beautiful, how crispy it is on the bottom. This is gonna add so much to our Shabbos table. And you know what? The whole family was involved. So so there's two things to do. Either, if you don't have a cooling rack, turn it upside down and kind of lean it against the side of the rack. So this way, everything is getting cool and it will all refrain from getting soggy. If you do have a cooling rack, great, just put it on the cooling rack. And now it's on the cooling rack and it will cool, and as soon as it's cool enough to handle, you'll enjoy it. So here's a cooling rack and here's our beautiful challah. I love it. It's rustic, it's delicious. We have more dough to work on. I want to thank you so much for joining in our challah baking virtual experience. Here, my husband wants everybody to see what it looks like in the oven. So there's our challah baking. Yum, yum, yum. The timer is on. And we will wait till it's ready and we will enjoy it for Shabbos. Thank you so much for joining me in our challah bake. Shabbat shalom. And women, light Shabbat candles. You and your girls, anyone over 3 years old.
By 6:45.
Please light Shabbat candles. You know what? Women have the power to light up the world, and we need light now. So please, every single person, bring Shabbos into your home, bring it into this world. We have that power to change the whole world by one light at a time. At what time is it? 6:45. Please join me virtually and light before 6:45. What time?
6:45.
6:45.
Yeah, virtually.
Light Shabbat candles at 6:45. Don't film it because it's Shabbat, but in your hearts and in your mind, know that all the women around the world are lighting Shabbat candles, and we have that power to bring light and health and good things to this world. And may we be able to leave our houses soon, but while we're in our house, let's find the silver linings. Please text me, email me, let me know what your silver linings so I can find them in my life too. Thank you very much. Shabbat shalom. Yay! Okay.